Today we're going to be working on a hydraulic handbrake. Handbrakes used in a Honda configuration are generally used for staging brakes. There are many versions of handbrakes. Today we're going to be working with the CNC 402. We're going to be installing this one in a 92-95 Honda Civic. We're going to be working with two different versions. One that goes through bulkhead and one that goes in through the original e-brake cable holes. Many drag Hondas are using aftermarket rear control arms. So a lot of the guys that were running those style eliminate the original e-brake handle and cables. What that's going to do is leave us holes in the exhaust tunnel. Those same holes we can run our hoses through. We'll have two versions. We'll have one that runs through those and using the factory grommets, and then we'll have one that's set up through a bulkhead that goes through the rear seat back shelf. Here's our handbrake. This is pretty standard in our community, so you can be quick off the brake and straight to the shifter. We're going to mount ours in this same location. Like most of the kits I have available, I'll draw out a schematic based on theory, then I'll apply that theory practically. So I'll pull some hose right off of the spool, I'll add the fitting that I think it's going to need, attach it to the device I want to use, and then string it to where I want it to lead. And this is going to be all based off theory without cutting anything. Once I fit it, then I'll see exactly how long it needs to be, if it's going to work in that location at all. And if it does, then we have a part. The first version I have in mind is the bulkhead style. The reason I'm starting with that is because the e-brake's still in place. So we're going to string the hose up to the back seat shelf. And I'm calling it a shelf because that's kind of what it is. And this is where the back seat mounts. What we're going to do is we're going to add a bulkhead directly here in the center of the shelf that our hose will run through. Once I have that hole drilled, then I'll have a good idea about how long this will need to be. I'll add the fitting on this end, and then we'll have a length. So this will sit next to the shifter here. Then the hose will string to the bulkhead. That bulkhead, the T is going to be on the opposite side, on the other side of the gas tank. So that means we may have to drop the gas tank. And again, if this is a kit for you, then that's just something you're going to have to deal with. There are other versions that we can work with, like going through the e-brake cable holes, but that's assuming that you don't have an e-brake. If you're somebody that doesn't have an e-brake, then you might be the person that has an aftermarket gas tank anyway. Alright, now that we're down there, right up there where you see the light poking through, I think that's about where the bulkhead fitting would fit. But it also looked like it's double walled there. Being that we're kind of on the ground here, to get to that, looks like we'll end up having to remove this, the exhaust heat shield out of the way. That'll give us a little bit more room to work. We might be able to get a bulkhead in there without having to drop the gas tank, except I'm not quite sure exactly how we would attach a line. When prepping to run our hole, it looked as if it was double walled on the inside underneath the vehicle behind the gas tank, which is back there. And it looked like it might have been double walled, and it actually is. So we drilled a small pilot hole that we can see what's going on, and it is. So I don't know if I like the idea of that. There are plenty of kits out there, well, a few anyway, that I've seen that are using a bulkhead in that area. So to do that, it looks like the gas tank will have to be dropped, and people that are putting bulkheads in between two pieces of steel that have space in between, and they're just crushing those two together. I don't know if that's the most efficient way to go about it. I suppose if that's what you really want to do and are trying to achieve, you could. So it really depends on what people want. Alright, we're going to remove the exhaust heat shield. It looks like there's two parts here. There's going to be this back one, and then the one it's underneath. We're going to remove those two right now. Alright, with the heat shield off, we can see how the brake lines are installed. You can see how they're mounted to the body. This kit that we're going to install generally is used for those with aftermarket trailing arms, which means they're not using the e-brake cables. So we're going to route the hoses in the general direction that these cables are routed. We have the e-brake cables removed. Along with that, we remove the grommet that seals the cables from the outside of the vehicle. We slid it off, and we're going to be able to slide our new hose through it, which will seal just like they did with the cable. We have the through e-brake setup finished. We'll call that the e-brake setup because it's going through the factory e-brake cable holes. We actually reused the grommets and they fit really nicely. That means that it's sealed from the elements just like it would be factory. It's really nice. This is underneath the car. They came through the grommets very nicely, and then they split off to both rears. What I'm doing is I'm routing them as close to the body as I can so we can attach them to some kind of factory location. So we have a spot that we can use here, then we run along the body and we can use that point there. What is really exciting about routing it this way is as we were doing this, we discovered another fitting that we could use here. Exciting about that is this is a universal point. So regardless whether this vehicle had drum or rear discs, it will work. It will attach here, and this hose right here then gets swapped out depending on whether it's a drum or discs. So because of this, that means this kit is now universal. So we now have a universal kit for the EG. This kit we call the bulkhead version. It routes around your factory e-brake. If you were someone that's still retaining your e-brake, we have the hose sent through a bulkhead through the exhaust tunnel. On the bottom of that bulkhead was a T. The hoses then tee off from there through the exhaust tunnel and route along where the factory brake cables was once. If this car still had brake cables on it, we have the hoses routed near factory bracketry, so we can mount the hose there and also one over here. The hose then runs up to the factory mount. With the banjo mounted here, just imagine using an aftermarket trailing arm. This kit would work with everything. It mounts here. The only thing that's going to change is from this point to wherever the caliper or the drum happens to be. You were to get this now, it would work with whatever current setup you have, and then later on you change it to like the extended trailing arms like FCS or a KS tune. If the hose is mounted here, then nothing else, you don't have to change anything else. We have a variety of kits available on our site. Go check out hushperformance.com.